Good evening. No? Yes? I hereby call this special board meeting for the LCAP and budget adoption to order on Thursday, June 15th at exactly 5 o'clock. Let the record reflect that Mrs. Merkley and Mr. Lopez are absent this evening. If I could have everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I please have a motion to adopt the agenda? Thank you very much. It's gonna feel that way a lot tonight. All those in favor? Aye. The agenda is adopted as presented. Welcome everybody this evening for this special board meeting approving the LCAP and budget adoption. Comments from members of the Board of Education. Would any of you like to make a comment this evening?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Comments from members, public comment. Is there anybody here that would like to make a public comment?
Madam President, I don't see any members of the public, only employees here tonight.
Thank you very much. There are no public comments. We're going to move on to the discussion action items. Item 2.1, approve the Glendora Unified School District Local Control and Accountability Plan, LCAP, for the 2023-2024 school year. The LCAP and California Dashboard Local Indicator documents can be accessed for review on the GUSD website. May I have a motion to approve?
I'll second.
I'll open it up for any conversation.
Madam President, this is Gary Clifford for you out in the audience. I worked long and hard today and did a lot of reading. I read all 39 pages again of the LCAP presentation. I went back to the SARC report. It's my perception that I'm having a difficult time as a non-academic business person correlating the goals and objectives to the budget, to the LCAP, in the way the LCAP is written. And I'm being reverent to staff, of course. I know this LCAP is an inherited LCAP. I believe that staff, it's in year 3 of 3. And it's my argument. I looked at a couple of LCAPs and I looked at ours, and it's my argument to our citizens would be that I don't think the LCAP is filled out in a way that I could support. I think it's inaccurate is the easy way to say. And there's several things. When I looked at it and I was looking at the measurements and where were the goals and objectives that were important, under which goal they were, for instance, safety, health, 21st century learning environments, goal number 2, I went through the entire Likert scale and the areas that emerged were good. I listened to the presentation and thought those were things that we were working on, but what they actually were things that were going well. Like the students were very happy. 80% of our students have friends at school and they're having a good time. They're very happy with their technology. They're able to focus. It was a very positively skewed scale. And on the things that we were trying to, whoever did the scale was trying to poke out of them, I think that 6 or 7% was the highest on the negative side of the scale. So it is my perception that everything that we were doing at the school level was right from a standpoint of the well-being and education of the students, at least what I could read. The part where I got stuck was where we talked last week when we were talking about the measurements that come back to affirm whether we're doing well with the LCAP or not, was pretty much focused around facilities and looking at all of that. And I have a hard time because I was referred back to the SARC, but I really think what I should have been referred back to is something called the FIT, F-I-T.
The FIT feeds the SARC.
The FIT feeds the SARC, but the FIT is the document that somebody fills out when they go to a facility and they give it a visual look. And trust me, I know way too much about this. I didn't want to know this, and then they go out and they make determinations whether they're quantitative or qualitative. And so the SARC to me is, let me read it to you exactly what it said, because this is what struck me, if I could. It says, the facilities are maintained in good repair as measured by the fit. Okay, have you ever seen a fit?
No.
Okay, I haven't, I would like to see the fit, and reported on the SARC. So what I was struggling with is I was looking at all of it, and it's, what I believe is in front of me tonight is a document that our staff inherited, and they're looking at it and they're presenting it to us, and in my opinion, and I mean this in a positive way, it's not acceptable to me to have my name on it in the way that it is currently, from a standpoint of we're going to implement the things that it says and be able to measure them accurately. That's all I'm saying. And I think that I'm being told that it's okay because next year we're going to do a new LCAP, and then we're going to be able to put our own measurements in and create the Likert scale the way we want to. But my question is, on the LCAP rules, are you allowed to change it within the 3 years, or do you have to, it's like, okay, this is a 3-year plan, and let's just say somebody muddled it up, and then an administration changed and they came in, they can't like redo it, or they just have to own it. You have to inherit somebody's. For instance, let's just say Gary Clifford was the assistant superintendent and he did the LCAP and it was incorrect. That could be a possibility, right? That the LCAP was incorrect and it didn't have proper measurements and it was skewed, maybe. Could a district go in and change that LCAP and say we're going to change it, or do you just have to say, okay, we're going to buy off on it and then wait till year 3? I need some help with that.
So, and Dr. DeGrazia, I saw you pushing.
Yep.
You want to go first?
You go ahead and go first, and I'll go.
So you are supposed to stay within your goals and actions and track those for 3 years. You can make minor changes. For example, the minor change I made was to add as measured by the fit available in the SARC for clarity. And then you go down to the bottom and you have to explain why you made that minor change. But it is not meant for a revamp until the end of a complete revamp until the end of your cycle. So they do tell you in the meetings and the pre-reviews that we had with LA County Office of Education, it's not meant to be a revamp. Your minor tweaks and explain every tweak. I mean, like I went in and changed the THEIR to THERE, and I had to write some.
By the way, there were a lot of those too.
Yes.
I mean, I don't, not, an academic document, there were a lot of those kinds of issues. I didn't even want to bring those up.
Yeah, we have to
There's still a lot
cite
of
those word by word to change them, and we did that in there. And we do have 5 days from approval to make any final edits, but it is not meant to be a complete revamp in the middle.
A couple things. I do have some information on the fit, what it is, and how it's defined through the education code. So I wanted to give that
So
to each.
is this what you, so
Yes,
I
I just-
read all of that, I went to all of those documents, but it didn't tell me anything about our fit. It told me what the fit is,
Right.
and I think the fit's an important document. I mean, the more I got into it,
And yes, please. There you go.
the more I got into it, I think the fit's a document, but I haven't seen it. What I saw was the SARC, but if it just said the measurements, the SARC, I'd get it. But it says, I'd like to see at some point in time, and I think I asked, but I don't think there's enough time
No,
to figure that out.
it's going to take some time
Um,
to secure
so-
that, but we can certainly secure that for you.
So what I want at least, what I want our representatives out in the field to know is that I believe that goal number 1, the student achievement, is right on. I think that our students have demonstrated via surveys that they're in a good place. Personally, as this relates to the budget, I'd like to spend more money on the core curriculum things to get those scores up and less money on some of the other things, but that's a personal choice that I'm saying that I probably will have some input on the next LCAP on. Under safety and health, I really liked the Likert scale, the questions that were asked, and I think the students at a high level demonstrated local competency, and they demonstrated that they're in a good, in the 80th percentile, that they're in a good place at school. Now that means that maybe at a 20th percentile, some aren't, but I couldn't tell from that survey whether they were 4s, 3s, 2s, or 1s.
Am I correct that there was not a youth truth that came through this year, so you don't have that aspect? Can you maybe explain to Mr. Clifford what the youth truth is and how that? Are you good?
If it's not part of the LCAP, it will just confuse me even more.
Well,
It is, and Mrs. Vacker can explain more about it, but it's, I believe that's one, just like the Healthy Youth, that's given every other
Okay.
year. So although it's used as a metric, we didn't have updated scores from this
Got it.
year, but it was a prior metric.
I saw the healthy youth part in there, okay. On the communication goal, I thought it was really clear as I went through the communication parts, about parent decision-making and parent act, and I want our people to know that from the LCAP that I read, there was a lot of, discussion, goals, and measurable objectives on communication as it relates to parent decision-making, parent involvement, and it seemed like that increased, right? So that seemed good, and I think maybe on the next LCAP, we'll even have some more information on that. Not for just, parents' involvement in things, but more parent involvement. And the last part that I wanted to bring up was under the fiscal responsibility. This is my second biggest struggle besides the fit. One of the measurements is to develop a strategic plan for addressing declining enrollment and its impact on the district budget and education program, and then it goes on and on and on. I haven't seen, have you seen that? I have not seen the strategic plan for
no, I
addressing.
can't say that I've seen, let's say, a document or something that's
Right.
been presented. There have been a lot of conversations. We talk about the dual immersion language program. We talk about the career technical education pathways. We talk about all the different, the TK and lowering the age on the TK. Like, there are a lot of contextual clues that I can pick up in the ether because I've been here for a few years now and know that that's what we're doing to try and combat declining enrollment, but I can't say that I've ever seen a document or a presentation.
Right, and so there's two.
The other thing that we talked a lot about is the position control and the attrition of staff as students have lessened
Thank
in
you for
enrollment.
reminding
We've
me.
lessened
We've
our
also
staff.
gone through some very rigorous master schedule review, both at the high school and at both middle schools over the last, let's say, 3 years. So you are absolutely correct. There are a lot of actions that have taken place to address declining enrollment that way. Is there a document or a presentation that's been made to the board to specifically discuss that? Not that I recall.
Right, and that is what, as a governing person, being asked to sign off on that being there, I'm struggling with that, Madam President, just because I'm looking at the documents and they're very, I'm trying to bring it up here, I have a picture of it, but they're very clear. I just don't see, and that's a big part of goal number 4. And it says, like, the title is expanding state-of-the-art programs.
Okay.
And I understand there's some really cool state-of-the-art programs in the Garner Holt, the aviation, the dual immersion, and many others. I'm just topically pulling them off from just paying attention this year. But I have not seen anything developed in a strategic plan for addressing declining enrollment and its impact on the budget. I've seen kind of things, that are out there, and I didn't know, I wouldn't have known that even correlated to fiscal responsibility unless when I went down into, I read hundreds of pages of this stuff to try to figure it out, and I also went to a template LCAP to look and see what, if I wasn't doing Glendora's, what would it look like? And it was significantly different, and I didn't know if that was just because of the district or the template or what we do.
Everybody is going to you're allowed to personalize, for lack of a better word, right?
LA County Office of Education provides the templates for the districts in LA County. It's a moving target. Sometimes with the templates, they shift. They will make revisions to the template next year. And it's important to note that each year, past, present, future, LACO is the body who affirms that we've done this process correctly. In the past, they've said so. They've worked very closely with Dr. Prince and our team to say that we're right on mark with this one as well.
That's good. And I'm being reverent in my discussions. I'm not being punitive, please. But I just want you to know that personally, I care less about what LA County and the state and the federal government says about the guidelines about what we're supposed to do, and more about the academic and business excellence that you all have garnered in coaching us into what we think fits this district the best. So I feel like there's five, and I'll say this like in military terms, like an air boss, there's 5 bosses of this district that determine what policy is the best, in my opinion. And if the state says, here's a guideline, that's cool, there's a guideline, and that guideline could be downloaded into our LCAP. And then we probably would tweak it to fit what we believed the data showed in our external environment, which would be different than anybody else's, what forces were there that would formulate the LCAP behaviors that would truncate down to a functioning budget, and then we could measure and come back with those goals and say, yes, we did that. Yes, we did that. At least that's how I see the LCAP, and I finally understand it. When you guys have been talking about the LCAP and the SCAT cap and all the different things, I get it now, the acronyms. I'm starting to pick up on them. But if somebody just tells me, oh, Gary, we have to do it because that's what the state says, that kind of turns me off. Because then to me that's okay, because you may be protected, but I don't know that that has the best interest of all of our students and parents. So what I'm looking for in the future is specific data as it relates to how to improve our facilities, how we measure those improvements, and how that truncates up to academic excellence. I'm interested in parental involvement, parental input, parental acknowledgement, and having parents even have more interaction with our students, not just to drop them off in the day and come and pick them up at night, and not to be intimately involved with that regardless of what state guidelines are out there. And lastly, I want to make sure that we're spending our money on the right things. In other words, I would hate to work on a program that we think we need for a small majority of our students, where a large amount of our students are failing in the math category. And I think we had talked about this earlier in a certain area. So I couldn't make the correlations that I needed to make to understand this, and I was hoping maybe in a discussion somebody could help me get there. But I think I've made it clear at least what I don't understand. And my topical closing statement would be, this third year LCAP to me doesn't have accurate facility measurements in it, doesn't have accurate money put towards facilities to make them better. And as I was driving around town today doing my work, I stopped at the track and I was watching the students use the track, and I was just shaking my head when I go back to the SAR that says it's in good,
right?
good, no, doesn't say adequate, it's maintained good. And I did the same thing in another school that I won't mention, and then as that relates to the budget, and then when I looked to see where the budget was and tried to correlate the budget pieces to it, I couldn't put it together, that's all. And so I'm either not smart enough to do that, which could be a possibility, don't understand all the nuances of it, or am being asked to support something that was created from somebody else at a time and place that may not be accurate today. That's kind of how I feel about it. Does that make sense?
I think that is fair. So are there specific questions that you have now that can help you get to a place tonight? And then I think we do need to have a conversation about what the process looks like moving forward for next year, that we don't necessarily follow the template as much, or what sort of latitude we have as far as personalization. Help us understand if you know what it looks like to make what sounds like a bit of a shift that way. So I'll start with the first part. Are there specific questions that you can have answered for you right now that help you get to a place for this meeting tonight?
Thank you. I asked some questions at the last meeting. I don't think I got the data that I needed. I did get some data, but what I received was mostly just, hey, here's why we do it. It wasn't the hard data. It was just like, here's an example, here's an explanation. Go to this website and read. This tells you how you did it. What I would like to see is the actual document of the person that went out and evaluated the facility and said, Glendora High School is in good shape for the physical education of our students.
Okay.
And tonight, you're gonna sign off on it saying that, yes, it is.
Okay.
And I don't think it is. You're also gonna sign off on something that says, yes, we're gonna spend money for this thing. And I think, the biggest thing I wanted to spend money on immediately was testing and extracurricular activities for people in the low mathematics scores and other areas. And I didn't see that any more pronounced in here than it was before when we talked about it, when we got the actual ratings. And then the last part is, unless somebody can show me a strategic plan for declining enrollment, and I've tried to find it, it's gonna be difficult for me, but that's okay. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to be coached. I am, and I'll be quiet. And then if there's a majority to support it, if that's what the majority of the board does, then once it's done, I'll support it. But lacking that knowledge right now and not having discussions, because I didn't think it was appropriate, because I probably would have ruined your day if I called you and said, Elizabeth, I need more data. I think that answers your question.
Okay, so as far as the physical documents of the fit are concerned, who generates the document? The Office of Public School Construction? Okay, come on up.
All right. Good evening, distinguished Board of Trustees. So the fit,
Probably not too distinguished.
no, so the fit report, it's from the CDE, so it's kept in the maintenance department because the maintenance, they're the ones that go in and do the checklist. And then at the end of the year, during our annual audit, our auditors review the fit reports to make sure that if there are items on the fit report that needs adequate, because they have to follow up on it. So they ask us, have you guys followed up on it? What have you done? So the fit reports are being done here internally, and then they are then reviewed by our independent auditors at the end of each year.
And are they reviewed by the auditor such that an auditor is going to a site and reviewing the document versus what they're seeing in front of them, or only if somebody checked inadequate or there was a problem?
It's just checking in, so whatever's on the form. So from what I understand, they're not actually visiting or, going to the site, but on the sites that they do test, because every year they select about 3 sites to test. So there have been times where they've gone in, look at the fit report, and then kind of did the comparison. But during the past couple of years with the pandemic, I don't think that's been the case. But now that we're back, regularly.
And the fit, I'm assuming it's a standard form for the entire state, like, here you go.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's from the CDE.
Yeah, so then are there blank spaces at the bottom of the form where you have the ability to add in your own criteria or your own
Notations.
well, or just like, okay, there's not a place here for a dilapidated track, or there's not a place here for chillers at the middle schools, or whatever the case might be. So like, if there is not a line item, if there's not a line item for something that we've got going on here as a problem, is there a way to add a problem?
Yeah, I believe so, because the way it's set up is you can write in, okay, I'm looking at room 2, room 3. So if we want if we want to expand on the category and say, for example, at the high school, we want to add the pool, the track. So those things I believe can get added, because from what I recall, each room is listed. So you kind of list what rooms and whatnot.
And what month does the fit document, over what period of time are the inspections taking place on the fit documents?
Oh, I want to say during the springtime, because our auditors would ask for it at
the
the end
fall.
of the year, right?
Okay.
Well, it has to be done
Hang on one
Oh,
second.
no, first,
It's for the SART, which we have to do
By
in February, so
February.
I would say actually.
the year before.
Ideally, we ask maintenance and operations to do them over the summer so that everything can be entered. You have to enter it in a template. And then that feeds over into our SARC. And actually, we manually enter all those little notes and everything, Mrs. Webb and I, in our SARCs. And those have to all be completed and published on February 1st. And board approved by that time. So ideally over the summer, but sometimes it'll go into the fall. But they have to be entered and board approved by February 1st with the SARC for publication.
Okay, I think, go ahead.
Additionally, we also go one step further than that, because through our JPA for liability, we also walk with a combination of those that come from the JPA insurance company. We actually go through and we also do another walk, and I believe they use that fit tool, is they sit there and they do some of their assessments and prioritizations of things that we should be looking at that could be considered liability.
Okay, so what I am hearing is, as far as, let's say, this coming up school year, right? Like if you were wanting to make adjustments to the fit, it's happening right now.
I would say that if we.
Is your microphone on?
First off, thank you for that line of questioning, and I demonstrated self-control because I wanted to help add some things to it. But I think that the form that comes from the state does have things that you can fill out about the other areas, not just a classroom, but the other areas. You can add stuff, but I do think I think people have been saying, oh yeah, this is good, and it's not good. That's what I think, but I can't prove it because I have not looked at a fit. But I would say in retrospect, approving a SARC without having the ability to see the fit at the governing level is a leap of faith. In other words, do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, a lot
Like,
of governance is a leap
you
of
told
faith
me-
this way.
you-
They're
yeah.
bringing us their recommendations,
Right.
and we're trusting our staff.
But I
Yes.
went back to the SARCs because I do remember those coming up, and when I looked at the SARCs, I go, I don't know. And so then when I looked at the measurement, I said, this is the tool to measure it. Then when I went back to look at the measurement, it said it wasn't. It said that's the reporting mechanism. That's all it is. The SARC is the reporting vehicle, but the fit is the measurement. So then what I would like to see in the future when we're approving SARCs is the fit. And then you could say, oh, that's cool. And I would like to see a fit for each facility, not just for the ones, like, I don't think it had all of our school sites in it. It didn't have a couple. That was my
There
recollection.
were not
with it.
SARCs for everything?
No.
There would
Which-
not be a SARC for Williams, is there? And then, but the other 9 should have all SARCs.
But
Right.
why wouldn't there be a SARC for Williams? Because there's activities that are in the LCAP. That's where I'm struggling.
Okay, yeah,
Because
no,
there's-
this is a great sorry.
It's not
It's not a K-12. It's not a K-12. SARCs are for K-12 schools.
But there's some stuff about that in the LCAP though, about what we do at Williams. I thought I read, we do this. I want to think there were like 8 things I didn't even know we did, but we do preschool, we do post-school, we do some other things. There's other things that happen there. I could look for it, but
You could do a fit tool for other things, but you wouldn't create a SARC. You could still do a tool, because the fit is just a tool.
A fit, it says to me, if I'm understanding it right, the fit is the measurement.
The fit
The
is a
fit is-
tool.
the
The
fit-
facilities inspection tool that is used for those metrics for the SARC. So you could do a fit on a facility, but not have it translate to a SARC, because the SARC we do just for the K-12. But you could still do a fit for, if the board requested that or wanted that from maintenance, you could have them use that tool on any facility, but it wouldn't become a SARC.
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Garcia has a question she wants to ask real quick.
I think I'm looking at the fit and what it's asking. And I think part of the problem is all what is considered adequate, that criteria. And so what we want is, you keep saying you want it to look like Disneyland. And that is not a standard on the fit. Disneyland, it's never gonna say, does it look like Disneyland? And then, okay, it doesn't meet that expectation, therefore it is inadequate. And I think so that I think is part of the problem where the criteria comes in on the fit, that it is very basic. Is it functional? Are our kids safe? Are they gonna put their hole there and get electrocuted? No, then we're good. We're good to go. And that is something that is said by the California Department of Education. That's something that we can change. Now, we, I believe, as a board, can probably add more to it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but we may not necessarily be able to put that into the SARC and then translate it into the LCAP. Am I right? Okay. So I think that's the problem. We want, of course, Gary, I'm with you. I want our schools to look like Disneyland too, but that is not a criteria in the fit tool, so therefore we can't translate that. There's just no way to make that part of the criteria. So that would be something different that we do on the side and create some kind of goal to have certain things at our schools. And it may not be part of the LCAP. It may just be something separate that we set as a board of goals that we want for each school and what we want it to look like and little extra things we want it to have. And I know, listen, the track is not a little extra thing. In my opinion, it's important.
Well, it's part of the 21st century learning environments to me. It's in that particular case, but.
I understand,
I-
but the fact that we have such a limited budget, I think it's keeping us from being able to do all these extra Disneyland type improvements.
But pointing that out on the fit, and then into the SARC, and then into the LCAP, being transparent
Yeah.
about the problems
Yes. No.
is a step towards making arguments as far as alternative funding sources via the state, via however we go that way. The transparency and the education to the community about what the honest state of affairs are in regards to facilities is part of its own process to be part of the solution.
And until tonight, unless you guys have, I haven't heard of fit or until last.
Prior to being on the board, it is something that I would
Okay.
look at when I was trying to understand the LCAP. And as you work your way backwards, you eventually end up, working with the fit, and that's when you see the little notes. Most people don't go through that stuff. It is kind of, there's a reason why they kind of translate it into other
Okay.
forms so that it's usable data at that point. But I agree with you. I think it's important that we have adequate documentation so that we can come back and tell our community, like, this is what we need, this is how much money we actually have, and this is how much money we actually need. But if we have no record of what is lacking, then we can't really.
Well, that's not entirely true. While that doesn't go into the fit, that does go into the needs assessments that we do
There you go.
probably every 2 years or on a rolling.
So that's
on
important
a-
to.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we are in constantly working with outside organizations and internally to be producing a document that's a need assessment tool as far as what we've got going on. Then it's triaged. Then we figure out, I suspect that this is how we figure out what we're going to do as far as facilities and repairs are concerned every year. And there is typically, at least there has been in the past, dollar amounts that are attached to that needs assessment tool, which far surpass our budget that way. The last needs assessment that I was involved in 2017 was up over $300 million. And that was before all this construction and inflation costs that have come with COVID in the last couple of years. Yes, sir.
I just thought because of the title of the LCAP, Local Control and Accountability Plan, that all of that stuff you're talking about had to be a part of this plan, because this plan is in kind of like the nucleus, and then all the budget and all these other
Yeah, the
activities.
state requires us to give us the money.
Because at some point in time, we're
Yes.
voting to say, yeah, here's the goals, here's the objectives, and then here's how we're gonna measure it, and here's a success tool. But there's, in my arena, through my Clifford lens, there's a big hole
Okay.
about stuff that has to get done that isn't measured here, and that's where I'm at.
So, so that's actually excellent for being able to clarify. So the LCAP is really just one portion of your budget. You're looking at general fund. There's a lot of things that aren't reported in here. For example, our Title I or Title II, or a lot of maintenance and operation funds that I won't even try to name because
understand that.
that's not my department. But there's lots of things that happen outside the LCAP. The LCAP is sort of limited, and it does give us goals and focus and help us to hone in. But budget-wise and item-wise, it's really just about, you have this part of the fund, and the LCAP is really about this much of it.
Okay, so let me ask you it this way, and then you can call for the question, and move on to the next thing. Would it be your argument that all of the SARCs that were presented to us and all of the ratings are, they're accurate and you stand behind them, and that equates to all the things that we need to get done with the LCAP?
I would say that what they have in there meets the guidelines that Ed Code puts on them. I won't say that it's perfect. I worked at Goddard and walked those grounds for 7 years. I know that there are potholes you can trip over or things that, we work our best on. But I will say that, yes, they meet the criteria that Ed Code has. That doesn't mean outside of the LCAP, we don't want to do a lot of funding and a lot of searching. For example, I spent a lot of years resetting the chiller, as did Mr. Osborne.
Right.
And I would love to get new chillers for our middle schools. How much that costs, it's not a possibility in the LCAP. However, we look at all of these outside fundings, and we definitely want to look at how we can make that happen. But that isn't part of the LCAP. That's part of outside things that we want to do to go above and beyond what the requirement is. The fit was really, did we meet the Ed Code requirements?
So the chillers pass the fit and the SARC?
Technically, yes.
They're
They're not ideal. I don't love them.
I'm older than you guys. There's an old line from an old movie, something I lived through, when it said, "Houston, we have a problem."
Yep.
Yeah, that's just a
But
personal.
it meets the adequate thing because it does work. It's sensitive. It is oftentimes in need of support systems, but it does meet the terms of adequate underneath the definition.
Okay. I think I've.
Do you want to talk about the other two bullet points to get any more clarification as far as, I'll call it intervention supports, that you had mentioned in your second bullet point, and strategic plan for addressing declining enrollment?
I think they're gonna end up in the same place.
I think you're
So
probably
I
right.
don't wanna
I
waste anybody's
actually,
time.
if possible, I would love to share. Mrs. Walzak and I were working recently. One of the things, we have been working throughout the process with LACO, and they had informed us partway through that we had a larger rollover than we had initially thought from in COVID. And we were excited to immediately put that under the goal that covers intervention, to be able to cover math interventionists at all 5 elementary schools. So even though we didn't specifically, it was already, interventionist was already written in there, so we didn't say added 5 interventionists because it was already part, but we added the money to hire 5 interventionists, 1 for each elementary school, specifically targeting math.
No, I think that would have been a better addendum than there.
Agreed.
I have nothing further. I think I've.
Okay, so, do you have any other questions right now? Okay, so what I would ask, if you might be able to concisely summarize, what can we do, given we know that fits might be going on right now for next year, the 3rd year in the cycle? What are we able to do to have our fit more closely resemble, or at least provide more transparent information to the board and our community at this time? What can that look like moving forward?
I think it's a great question. I think I'd like to go back. I'd like to be able to review the document and be able to come back with some possible answers on exactly what we can have to be able to move forward. I think that would be probably the best analysis that we can give you as to what that would look like.
Would it be reasonable to have you talk to us about that at our board study session on July 11th?
I can give you the information and share with you at that point. And I think, and together, maybe we can work on some strategies.
That's exactly my point. It's a study
As to
session,
whether or
so
not-
it allows us to really have a more open conversation that way.
Yeah.
And if you could bring us some data, bring us some documents that way, when we go and we're discussing the financial goal in our board goals study session, that seems like it would be
Because
fitting in.
the fit tool may not be the vehicle that you want to be able to use to be able to get to some of the strategies that Mr. Clifford's talking about. It may be more of a bigger overarching board goal. These are some things that we want to be able to address. And we've already started tackling some of those things, and Fund 17 has actually helped us with identifying some of those bigger projects, such as the pool and being able to do some things. We did the wrestling room last year. We've got some money set aside to be able to do the track. Rains did get in our way. Now, does it replace the track? It does not replace the track. It does replace some of the equipment and some of the pour and play areas that need to be revitalized. And those were actually noted, and I believe you'll find those. I don't think you'll find those in the fit, but we definitely noted those in some of our other walkthroughs that we have done, that those are not to the best interest of the students.
And I think, just in closing then just in closing, in the future, I would like your consideration of two things. A, if I could have access and see the 2022 fit for the high school and for Sutherland School.
I think
Or-
we'd be interested in seeing them
I would
all at
like to
this
see,
point,
I
frankly.
would like to see it, and if you guys
Yeah,
wanna see
I
it,
think
that's
at
up to
this
you.
point in time,
I would
given
just
the
like to see those
conversation
two
that
for
we're
right
having
now.
right now, having access to all of them would be helpful.
And then if we're going to change something, which I think, again, I don't care what it is. I just want, if somebody audits me in a decision, or if it's not gonna say facilities maintained in good repair as measured by fit and reported on SARC, if that's not what we're gonna do, which is okay with me, then on page 24 of 39 on the next LCAP that you're probably halfway done with,
I wish.
then I would like to change that measurement so we know what it is. Because if left uneducated and undone, I would think that a fit would include an entire campus, and I include a field and track and a locker room and a shower part of the academic arena of a classroom, and we're saying that they're good. And I just want to understand that if that's the measurement that the state says is good, then I think that we should hold ourselves to a higher standard than that, if that's what they're saying. My argument would be that potentially it isn't what we think it is. And I have not been able to dig down in there because I don't know where the documents are.
Are we ready to move forward?
Yeah.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Mrs. Garcia and Mrs. Reuter affirm, Mr. Clifford opposes. Discussion action item number 2, approve the 2022-2023 estimated actuals and the final budget for 2023-2024. Yes?
Could we possibly take a break?
You would like me to take a recess?
Yes.
We just need to check the LCAP format and voting procedures to ensure that we are in line with those.
Okay, we are gonna take a,
For whether approval would be.
Is it a 4/5 vote?
it may be a certain majority.
Okay, so we're going to recess for 1 moment, or however long it takes, at 5:45 to do a little bit of research on LCAP approval. Okay, we will be reconvening the meeting here at 6:04 PM. We were given some information in regards to the majority required to pass the LCAP on in time for its deadline. Mr. Clifford has a few more questions that he would like to ask at this time. May I have a motion to reconvene the meeting, please?
So moved.
And to review 2.1 again.
Oh, do I need a motion to reconvene the meeting?
And the only people that can rescind it are the people that made the motion.
So let me have a discussion.
Can we do a discussion first, or do we need
Yeah.
to rescind first?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to have a conversation first. Sorry, this is procedurally new to all of us. One moment. Go ahead, Mr. Clifford.
So, Madam President, understanding the information that was given to us about the dynamics needed to move forward with our budget and with the LCAP, and understanding that we have two members not here tonight, and that has an adverse effect on us moving forward, I would like to ask two additional questions. And depending on the outcome of those two additional questions, I would like to have a reconsideration of our last vote, but I'd like to ask the questions first.
Proceed.
Okay, Mr. Superintendent, first off, as far as the LCAP goes, could someone refine the strategic plan for declining enrollment and get that to me within 7 business days?
Yes, I don't think that will be a problem. We have it referred to currently in the current strategic plan and initiative 4.5 under fiscal responsibility. But we will detail out for you the actions that have been produced over the last few years and current year, and then what we would look to do for the future.
So that being said, that would be additional information that I didn't have tonight, that I would have to be able to understand how that strategic plan affects declining enrollment and therefore could be measured in the LCAP, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Secondarily, the fit. Mr. Superintendent, is there any way within 7 business days someone could get me at least 2 of the fits? One fit for Glendora High School and one fit for Sutherland Elementary School. The most recent one that you have.
Yes, we're actively working on that as we speak, and we plan to have all sites, all 9 sites, school sites for you in terms of that
That
information.
would be more than I needed, but thank you for that. Okay, and those are both within 7 business days, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so that being said, Madam President, I would like to make a motion to reconsider and rescind our last vote for the LCAP.
Okay, the previous 2.1 vote for the LCAP, a motion to rescind was made by Mr. Clifford and seconded by Mrs. Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
That vote has been rescinded. Now I'm going to ask for a reconsideration vote for item 2.1, approve the Glendora Unified School District Local Control and Accountability Plan for the 2023-2024 school year. May I have a motion?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Moving on to item 2.2, approve the 2022-2023 estimated actuals and the final budget for 2023-2024. The full GUSD budget report for the fiscal year 2023-2024 can be accessed for review on the GUSD website. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Any questions are open for discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Item 2.3, approve/ratify the resolution number 22-23-22, authorizing the establishment of Fund 17, Special Reserve for Other Than Capital Outlay Projects Fund and Commit Fund Balance as presented. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Let's understand a little bit about what we're doing here, please.
Sure. Fund 17 basically sets aside very specific earmarked funds that will be used for a variety of projects. In there you have, for instance, the pool project. You have some additional CTE innovation projects that are also listed in Fund 17, amongst other things that make up some shortfalls that we may not always have funds for, and that the board over the past year has indicated was a priority.
Thank you. I have questions for either the superintendent or our director of finance. My first question is, does any Fund 17 expenditure have to be approved by the board, or are you just allowed to make the expenditure without board approval?
I believe we have to, because right now it's being set aside. So can I read a little excerpt regarding Fund 17? So basically, the GASB, which is the Government Accounting Standards Board, issued statement number 54 to enhance the usefulness of fund balance information by providing a better fund balance classifications that would be more consistently applied in governmental funds. So basically, Senate Bill 751 sets the threshold for triggering the cap on the district's reserves and the limits on how much school district can maintain in their local reserve. So basically, the fund had to be established because of the GASB 54, as well as the Senate bill. We can't keep more than 10%. So anything over 10% has to be committed or move into the Fund 17. So yes, anytime we spend Fund 17 or what's been committed, there we can definitely have a board approval saying, okay, we need to vote on this and that or whatever to move forward with expending Fund 17.
So my understanding of the difference between FASB and GASB, I live in the FASB world mostly, and you live in the GASB world, okay? They set those parameters up for specific reasons. In other words, instead of, just putting money away and saving money and not doing projects, they put a limitation on what you can save, general fund, non-discretionary funds, reserves, and that total can't exceed 10%, correct?
Correct.
So if it exceeds 10%, then the government now passed a new resolution that said, okay, if you do this special fund, then you can exceed 10%, and then you can store away more nuts in your cheek if that's what you want to do, to use them at a later time, correct?
Correct.
All right. So for the record, for my peers and for you guys, I don't understand why we would have a 6% reserve and Fund 17. I'd rather just have the general fund, a 3% reserve, and not have to, or a 6% reserve, and not have to have all those things. In other words, at every meeting and during all the financial discussions we have, it's been laid at my feet that we have a lot to do and we don't have enough money to do it. Is that a fair statement? We have a lot of repairs to do, we have a lot of things to do, and we don't have enough money to do it. Yet, we're passing a resolution to exceed what we're saving away in a rainy day fund to exceed 10%. Is that a correct assessment?
Yes and no. The 10%, it's basically, we can't, there's nothing we can do about when I say that, it's because it's the regulation from the CDE, the GASB, that you can't keep more than 10%
Right.
in your unrestricted. So we had no choice but to basically assign or commit anything over 10%. I do understand, go ahead. Brett. And as far as the additional 3%, so we have the required minimum, which is the 3%, and then we had voted a few years ago to make that 6% to an additional 3%. So that's a board action. So that's something that the board can act on. But as far as Fund 17 or committing the funds in excess of the 10%, that's something that we have to legally do.
Right, but if you do it if you have a project and you do it within the time allotment and there's no rollover, then you don't have, you do it. But to me, this is a tool that enables you to not have to get things done and then be assured that you'll be able to have money and a pool set aside that you could assign to tasks at a later date. That's why I just didn't understand it. I'm gonna vote for it. I don't understand the strategy behind it, number one, and at some point in a future date, I'm gonna recommend that we have a 3% reserve instead of a 6%. Whether we get support for it or not, I don't know, but because we have things to do.
Right.
And I'd rather have the money available unrestricted in the general fund to assign for things to do like repair the track, or buy an air conditioner, or take a tarp off of a building and fix the roof, versus having a 6% reserve and a Fund 17 that you could assign things to. But I would vote for Fund 17 only if you'd have to come to the board to get approval to use the expenditures. And then annually, hopefully you would come to us and say, hey, Fund 17 has $3 million in it. We need to do something. But that would be an embarrassment.
Right, why wouldn't we be spending it along
Right.
the way?
Yeah, like in other words, the simple question is, Madam President, why do we need Fund 17? If we have projects that aren't done and we have money that we needed to do them, then why do we have rollover money?
I'm guessing it's an issue of timing as far as the fiscal year ending, but I'm gonna let somebody that is more qualified than me answer that.
Thank you. If I could take a stab at that, I would be very happy to. So I think this has kind of been an anomaly, especially with having had ESSER funds. One of the things that we've done most recently with ESSER funds is we've tried to recapture what wasn't spent, and we've actually reallocated, and it came back to you as a plan. Part of what we're doing is we're spending it on air conditioning, retrofit, and using up the remainder of that fund. To me, that was a good resource of our funds versus using our general funds, because it allowed us to really be able to spend down what was remaining and put it in an area that we desperately needed to have done that we probably couldn't have funded normally. So there's been some shifts that kind of get made as you kind of do your year, right? There's some things that couldn't get done this year. For instance, the pool was in the last Fund 17 commitment. We did all the planning this year for the pool. We've been working very closely with Mr. Farrell as he's working on the plans for it, and we're moving forward. We tried to bring you back different information on things that are happening and the status of where we're at with Fund 17 to make sure that those commitments come forward. And we do try to earmark those towards conversations that we've heard the board talk about that they would like to see done, or that are high priority areas that are necessary in order to make sure that the district is able to go after some things that we would like to see done that sometimes aren't always called out in our budget if we don't have the additional funds.
So what happens if Fund 17 isn't there and you have that rollover money?
Oh, in the past, when we didn't have to move, when we did not have to formally move the funds to Fund 17, it remained in general fund unrestricted as basically assigned. So for example, we said, okay, this is for textbook adoption because we haven't been able to do that until this year. So we set aside this $2 million since we weren't able to spend it because of the pandemic. However, in 23-24, we are going to be spending it because this money is for textbook adoption. So the last couple of years and beyond, everything remained in the general fund as unrestricted assigned. So everything was there, but now we kind of just have to separate.
Because it.
We have to.
We have
goes
to,
over the 10%
correct.
threshold. Are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable with Fund 17? I'm not comfortable with it. And I need you to tell me how you're comfortable. I know you're asking us to do it, but you're comfortable with it? It just seems odd to me that it was in the general fund unrestricted, and then now we're going to create a fund that restricts it.
We're basically committing it, so not necessarily, like, for example, we have in the general fund, we have restricted funds from the state where,
I
right?
understand
But
that
on
clearly.
the committing the funds, we're saying, and the board can change, for example, right now, we're committing to certain different things, like salary and benefits and insurance and things like that. And say for next year, things change, the board can say, you know what, this is what we wanna do, we wanna do this and, and do these projects, then that's certainly something that can be done. It's not set in stone that you have to spend it on these specific things. It's definitely a board action, and the board gets to, have a say on how those funds can be, spent.
So this tool allows the board to take money that was restricted for something else and reallocate it in Fund 17 to another purpose, correct?
No, these are all unrestricted funds.
They're unrestricted funds.
Yes.
It's just the 10% threshold, that's
Yes.
the reason?
Yes.
Yes.
See, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think it brings more transparency if you want to know the truth. I think where before it would have been just kind of buried into a budget and maybe spread out amongst lots of different accounts. I think instead it brings it back together so that you have your eye on what's happening with it. I believe it brings more transparency personally.
it brings transparency to the fact that you didn't get that task accomplished, and now I would prefer to spend the money in the proposed time and get the project done and move on with something else. I'm gonna support this. I didn't understand the GASB part of it, because in FASB, I don't think you can do this. So I wanted to understand the nuance and why you thought this was important versus spending the money in the time to do it. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0. Okay. We are now at item 3.1, adjournment of the meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned at 6:22.